Hey, is there a better combo than barbecue and whiskey? BBQ and Barrels is back at Nationals Park on September 19th. This is the third annual celebration. It features unlimited pours from over 100 premium bottles: Buffalo Trace, Jack Daniels, Bardstown Bourbon, Catoctin Creek, and so much more. Enjoy delicious barbecue from local favorites, groove to live music, and bring home some great whiskey. BBQ and Barrels, September 19th at Nationals Park, where great whiskey meets incredible barbecue. Tickets are going quickly and are available at nats.com/bbqbarrels.
Join Move for Meals, a month-long fitness and fundraising challenge supporting food and friends. This October, you can walk, run, or bike wherever you are to help neighbors living with serious illnesses. Every $10 you raise provides one medically tailored meal delivered right to someone's home. With weekly wellness themes and fun challenges, Move for Meals is a chance to meet your fitness goals while fueling compassion in our community. Sign up today and make every step count at p2p.onecause.com/moveformeals or visit foodandfriends.org.
Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the end of Trump's police takeover, and we're dissecting the House's 14 DC bills. Plus, Donald Trump dines out and a wild suburban house sale. And in a members-only fourth segment, we're talking about the National Guard's offer to help with local landscaping, and we might think up some projects we'd like to assign. I'm here with Axios' Junaid Dill and my CityCast colleague Julia Karen. Today is Friday, September 12th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Junaid.
Hello, my friend.
Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Before we start, this Friday's Roundup is sponsored by Nace Law Group. CityCast fans have heard us raving about our longtime sponsor, Paulson & Nace. Well, now you're going to hear us raving about Nace Law Group. It is, in fact, the same great team, just with a new name. So, Junaid, it's been a while since you've been here. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Good to be back.
So, two big things in the news related in your world, which is covering City Hall and city government. One is the 30 days of the Trump's legal ability to demand service from the Metropolitan Police Department have ended. And two, Congress has marked up and voted out of committee 14 bills that affect all kinds of aspects of the governance of DC. Let's talk first about the end of the MPD takeover. As we've mentioned, the mayor has issued an executive order saying she wants maximal cooperation to the extent possible by law. So in real life, what does this end of the takeover mean?
The police chief's going to have control over the MPD again. So over the past 30 days, it was sort of under the chain of command of Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and she could sort of issue directives to have MPD officers assist ICE or ATF or FBI, other agents roving around DC in their various missions. That as I believe will now end, and Pamela Smith, the police chief, would have control over the police force again. So local control would return, but ambiguously, there would still be a lot of collaboration, I can imagine, between Mayor Bowser's administration and the Trump administration. So we're not completely out of this sort of weird federal takeover purgatory.
Yeah, I was going to say, so obviously a lot of people have been walking around and seeing like National Guards, men and women, at metro stations, Union Station, on U Street, that kind of thing. Does that just like magically go away, or is that still going to be there with cooperation from MPD? Do we know anything about that?
National Guard's sticking around as far as I know. Well, as they've said, I think they're sticking through December or November at least. Ohio's governor just said that they will have some guardsmen stay in D.C. through November. So that I don't think will go. Their mission might change. They're talking about beautifying D.C. now and trying to solicit random ideas like that. But looks like that presence is still sticking around in D.C.
So as we know, the mayor has said she would want to continue maximum cooperation to the extent possible by law. What are you hearing from your sources about what that last couple words, by law, means, because there are some things that in DC the MPD cannot do under statute, not just under policy set by a mayor that can be changed. So where does that leave her in terms of her ability to play nice with the administration?
It's really interesting. Like the mayor is trying to set up this scaffolding to essentially say, look, we have a deal in place with the administration. Congress, don't intervene further. And for the Trump people, you don't have to take over our police department. You don't have to go and do more things because we have this sort of framework in place. That's a very precarious sort of situation and a slippery slope, because what does maximum extent allowable by law mean? As you say, I think there's a lot of ambiguity. I don't think really the people I talk to know exactly what that will look like. We're all trying to get more clarity. The mayor's hope, some say wishful thinking, is that, now that we have this framework in place, the feds will draw down their intervention. But every sign points to Trump wanting to stay with an increased presence through next year's 250th July 4th celebrations and all that. So I don't see how this is going to result in less federal involvement, at least the kind of norm that we know in D.C. before this takeover.
So speaking of the laws of the city, the other sort of big municipal politics storyline that's going on is there are currently 14 D.C.-related bills in the House of Representatives. All of them on Wednesday were voted out of committee. And a lot of these specifically get into the nitty-gritty of the laws that govern policing and criminal justice in D.C. I was at the hearing, they passed on a party line vote. As best I could tell, it was sort of Republicans offering constitutional lessons about how the district is subject to Congress under the Constitution, and offering scary stories about how much crime there is here, and Democrats pushing back on a sort of matter of principle of places should be able to govern themselves in America, and in some cases talking about the actual bad effects that some of these proposed legislations would have. Is there, is there stuff that would affect the police department in ways that might oblige more cooperation? And secondly, what are the ones that people in the Wilson building are particularly worried about in terms of their day-to-day effect on the city?
Well, there's a lot, but big picture, they're worried about all of this because this is the, I think, lowest point in local government since the Federal Control Board in the 90s. So anything the council wants to pass now, this threat hangs over them that they could get smacked down by Congress. But if you look at the 14 bills, there's a lot in there that gets rid of the reforms after the police killing of George Floyd. So a lot of criminal justice things would be rolled back. The Congress wants to charge 14-year-olds as an adult, down from 16, to have that option of charging 14-year-olds as an adult in crimes. Progressive reforms would be rolled back. It would allow some things that the police union has wanted, like having police union members at bargaining decisions. Other things that would go after homelessness. Camping in public would be criminalized. Even sleeping in a car. You can't sleep in a car in public under these proposals.
They want to get rid of the city's elected attorney general, which, in their defense, that's not that old. It's only about 20 years or less than 20 years old that we've had elections for the attorney general. But before that, it was appointed by the city's elected mayor and government. Under their fix, it would be the president of the United States, Donald Trump, who appointed the city's chief lawyer.
And it wouldn't need Senate approval like some of these other, positions by the president. The president would just pick it.
Are there any of these measures that, I think that the standard sort of DC diehard position is, look, it's insulting to be bossed around by people we didn't elect. That's un-American. But are there any of these measures that if they had actually have support in the DC Council or in any sort of meaningful part of city politics, if they were proposed organically and locally?
I mean, the one where you submit legislation by email is probably the one that's going to be the most fruitful, right?
Yeah, there's one bill that Delegate Norton actually got through in this package, and that was the one that was supported roundly. It would like modernize how DC sends its legislation to Congress. But your favorite, Michael, legalizing right turns on red. I know you've written about this. This got in the package as well. It would also ban all traffic cameras as well in DC.
But some of the stuff involves criminal justice acts that were passed after the killing of George Floyd, and imposed new restraints on police. There were people, even at the time when those were debated in the DC Council, who thought, like, hey, maybe, I'm not for this. I think those people are going to have a harder time speaking out locally now because they're associated with occupation, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, these are police reforms that the council passed and the mayor sort of begrudgingly accepted, had criticism for, and increasingly is speaking out against them. Over the past few years, she's spoken out more and more against these things. So some of these things, while the mayor opposed them and wrote a letter to Congress saying don't pass these interventions, they are not going to cause too much consternation in the mayor's office, because some of these things related to policing, they're kind of for, I would say, if not super publicly, but privately.
I mean, Mike, you were at these hearings, yes? What was the temperature like? Did we, what'd we see? What'd you hear?
I mean, okay, so they had a bunch of people in like Free DC shirts and other sort of hometown shirts who were there, and they were applauding the Democrats. It was all party line. They were applauding the Democrats who were criticizing these things. And again, they were criticizing both on principle and in some cases on this is actually a really bad idea, like potentially sending people to jail for being homeless. The Democrats on the committee, really kind of mixed it up with the Republicans. That's like the Oversight Committee is a famously fractious committee where a lot of the bomb throwers of Congress are. Eleanor Holmes Norton had sent out this kind of like chest-thumping press release in advance. She will be speaking on all 14 bills, which is like, that's actually her job as a member of that committee. And she did. She read from prepared remarks, and it was quite awkward. She was slow. She botched some words. She did not engage with any questions. When there was unplanned stuff like amendments, she didn't have anything to say. So that DC's famous warrior on the Hill. That's not really. There was a lot of worrying going on, but it wasn't from her. Like Maxwell Frost mixed it up. A number of the other members of that committee mixed it up. Norton has this thing that I think is quite effective, where she reads the same boilerplate statement again and again and again, like this paternalistic and undemocratic legislation, et cetera, et cetera. But the kind of the lack of further engagement or ability to show passion while reading was really noticeable.
Yeah, Norton is 88. Several of her allies have told her that it's time to move on, pass the torch. And this was kind of the setting where she could have proved them wrong, come out and be forceful, bring that sort of fire that she had that everyone knew her for back on stage. And I had a source text me that this kind of felt like a Joe Biden debate moment where it didn't, the Times wrote she sat mostly silent. And she reread things that, like you said, reading the same thing over and over on a piece of paper.
And at one point, I think she actually just reread a couple pages of prepared remarks. There'd been an interruption. It was a little confusing.
There is one thing the mayor did push back on pretty strongly. I will say there'd be this whole effort to bring back cash bail, right? Right now in DC, a judge determines if someone should be released, and they have all these parameters, and the mayor thinks that system is working.
And that's the system for a lot of the country and the federal court system.
And DC sort of led the nation on, I believe, implementing that back when they did a couple decades ago. And Mayor Bowser said that would make the city less safe. And she urged Comer, who she's kind of on good terms with, to not let that go through. Of course, all those things passed. But it has to pass the House, and the Senate, they will need 60 votes. So we're going to see if any of this actually becomes law.
CityCast DC is made possible by the Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University, presenting the Peabody Performance Series, a full season of free concerts at the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center located at 555 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. The Peabody Performance Series brings one of the nation's leading conservatories to the heart of D.C. with concerts and programs spanning jazz, classical, chamber music, opera, and dance. Highlights this season include the Graduate Jazz Ensemble on October 31st, and in January, the Nexus Grant featuring 2 masterclasses and a reception with internationally renowned conductor Marin Alsop and the National Philharmonic. While all events are free, tickets are required for entry. Explore the full performance schedule, find out more details, and reserve your tickets early at washingtondc.jhu.edu.
Experience the glamour of old Hollywood at the Library of Congress on September 18th, when they'll host the 75th anniversary screening of Oscar-winning classic All About Eve, starring Bette Davis and Marilyn Monroe. The evening includes a special introduction to the film by library film preservation experts, as well as a curated display of library treasures, music, dancing, photo ops, and themed cocktails. Reserve free tickets to All About Eve at loc.gov/live.
So the other thing that happened this week in a much more low to the ground town gown relations was that Donald Trump, who's been notably has not dined out in Washington except at the hotel he used to own, that changed this week. And, I think some things about his experience maybe are going to make it like he doesn't want to do that again. He went to Joe's about a block from the White House. He claims that he was able to do this because the city's so safe now. I don't know about you guys, but I've never had a lot of trouble around that neighborhood. But he shows up, there's some cheers and some jeers on the street. Apparently people clap when he comes into the restaurant. He talks about how safe it is. And then all of a sudden, Code Pink protesters pop up and do a chant, "Free DC, free Palestine, Trump is the Hitler of our time." They are expelled and everyone proceeds with their evening. But the interesting things after the fact, I think there's 2 things. One is, how did these guys find out that Trump would be dining there? Because friend of CityCast's Jessica Sidman reported that someone got a tip in advance and they were all at another protest, Palestine protest, and they raced to make a reservation, got in, and were able to, make their views known. Laura Loomer, the far-right social media figure, believes that this was an inside job. Somebody in the deep state tipped them, but I think that's going to be a refrain on the right.
Also, the Code Pink's really good at getting into these spaces. And they said it was pretty last minute and pretty easy to get a reservation, which maybe people aren't going out in droves to dine, as Trump suggests.
And then the other piece of it is, if I'm a restaurateur in Washington, I may not want Trump, or for that matter, any high-profile political figure in my place, because what happened during the meal, it was reported, because people know where the president goes, it was reported Trump's dining there, and the whole world, or like many people online, got onto Google reviews for Joe's and began trashing the place, which they'd obviously never been to. And, that it used to be restaurants would be pretty psyched to have the president come because that gets them some attention. They get a nice, picture or whatever. But that's going to be a pretty big disincentive, since I would assume a place like Joe's, a lot of their business is people staying in hotels downtown who are going to consult Google reviews.
I imagine part of this is also like Joe Stone Crab is like, it is a chain, but I imagine the crowd there is like a mixed bag of folks who like work on the Hill, some higher level staff, people across the aisle, that kind of thing. I will say, big ups to Jessica Sidman, who, like, if you thought this was just like a deep state inside job, she also got the tip that Trump would be at Joe Stone Crab, raced down there, had to walk like the extra however many blocks to get there, and could not get a reservation, unfortunately. So Jessica Sidman could not be in the building when this happened, which was sad for us. If you're in Joe Stone Crab at that moment, like, what do you do? Are you applauding the president? Are you jeering? Like, are you joining? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I think one of the nice things about Washington is people here were pretty good at seeing, famous, or maybe I should say, quote unquote, famous people in, restaurants, at Safeway, wherever. And at just sort of being chill about it. So, when I hear these stories about Obama walked into a restaurant and everyone clapped, or, someone walked into a restaurant and everyone booed.
Man, but we're never going to be in New York where we like see the most famous person we've ever seen in our lives. And they're just like, be cool, be cool, be cool. Come on.
It's just different with President Trump, of course. But yeah.
And it's different in this case because he explicitly connected this trip to his alleged success in turning D.C. from a crime-ridden hellhole into the safest place there is.
Now, did he walk the 1 block to Joe's?
No, he did not.
I think he took Secret Service in the limo in the Beast over.
I think even the most walking-oriented president would have a hard time convincing the Secret Service to let him stroll. I think that's a real nightmare for a lot of the people who are in charge of protecting you. But, Jessica Zidman, friend of CityCast, had written a piece a little while before saying, like, maybe Trump shouldn't go out to eat in D.C. It's not such a great thing for a lot of the places that, wind up being eaten at. And I think that point's kind of borne out here.
I think he should. I think he should go and actually feel to whatever degree the city that he's actually talking about all this time. But I'm sure he does not spend a second thinking about the blowback these restaurants might get. But Meno Male Pizzeria welcomed Trump just quickly, and then they got some hate online for doing that exactly. I'm kind of curious about the counterfactual. Like, what if the protesters weren't there, and what about if just the normal diners? What would have happened then?
I mean, if he had gone to Butterworth's, I imagine that the normal diners would have been more to his persuasion.
Yeah, but they're also self-filled. That's a very conservative safe space, too.
I'm surprised he didn't go there, though. Like, Joe Stone Crab could have been like a toss-up, but Butterworth's would have been like home turf for him,
Yeah, I fully expected him to go there, honestly.
Maybe he doesn't like French food. All right, Julia, you were obsessed this week, just to get us a little bit away from national politics and DC politics for a minute, with this story about a Fairfax County house sale, very expensive house, and what they did to try to attract people to their open house, which is pretty awesome. I would have gone to the open house if I'd known.
Then you're fulfilling the point of what this was. So this is a house at 4635 Wood Glen Road in Fairfax.
God, you're doing their marketing for them.
I could be in real estate. Serhant Group, call me. I'm right here. The place is listed for like $1.499 million. It's $1.5 million, guys. Basically, this real estate agent, Kat Massetti of Serhant, made this event of turning this house basically into a petting zoo. It starred Mochi and Loki the alpacas, Princess Peach the goat, and it also had an albino snake. Apparently, this was the first petting zoo that Massetti organized. It was her most attended open house of the year. And basically, the whole point of these is you get neighbors chatting about like, ooh, like what's going down to the house? Like, I want to see, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. You're typically not going to get like a buyer at one of these things. You might, but like it's pretty rare. But the neighbors were abuzz because the kids were having fun. And I think it is wild that you would just have like a petting zoo at a $1.5 million house. I find it incredible.
But so the unwild question is, because everyone here is afraid about their own wealth and the tumults in the city's local economy, all the firings, the ones still to come. Are they having to do this kind of come on because the market is tanking otherwise?
So the market is really, really weird right now. We got some data from May, but according to a Bright MLS survey of real estate agents who were like working with a buyer and a seller, 37% reported that they had worked with a client who was buying or selling because of federal layoffs. So like the federal layoffs are not just impacting DC proper, it's affecting like all the surrounding areas too. So that market is going a little wonky. In addition to that, apparently 15% of all the spring sales, so back in May, April, in the DC area were motivated by retirement. So people who took the Doge buyout, took the retirement thing, were like, you know what? I'm going to sell. I'm going to downsize. It's all good. And this number I thought was really interesting. 43% of the surveyed agents said that the layoffs and the budget cuts have increased the numbers of sellers in the area. And 38% reported that prices are falling as a result. So the prices of actual housing is going down. But
well, 38% reported that they're falling, which would imply that 62%
say it's like staying the same. Sure.
Yeah.
At the same time, interest rates are kind of creeping and staying stable at whatever the rate is we've got right now. So, it could be that people are cutting the price of the house to like say, you know what, like if we cut the price, then maybe the interest rate will take over and it'll be fine. But yeah, DC's always had a weird housing market. But I imagine if you're like trying to buy in this area, petting zoo notwithstanding, it might be the time to go peruse and go look. Like I've poked around like just for funsies and I've just been like, I can't afford any of this. But Mike, like if you were to sell your house in Upper Northwest, would you host a petting zoo?
I don't have a yard.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
So it'd have to be for very small animals.
Only on the deck.
Only on the deck, right. So, yeah, I mean, has this house in McLean, is it still on the market post-petting zoo?
According to Zillow, it is still up for sale. So,
if you buy the house, do you get the llamas?
Yeah, write that into the contract.
I think you'd have to coordinate with the people who actually own Mochi and Loki and Princess Peach the goat. I imagine if you wanted a lawnmower, you could hire Princess Peach the goat out to graze your lawn. I actually think that would be fabulous for you.
All right, I guess that's all we have to say about that. I want to give a big thank you to our newest CityCast neighbor, Lauren C. Thank you for your support, Lauren. Today, paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat. We're going to talk about National Guard landscaping projects and other domestic improvements. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month, and members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Plus, it's never been more important to support local news, especially at this moment in DC history. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Steberman and Natalia Aldana wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from DM, Blue Lou, Rue Walker, Philip Ayers, and Jim Gagliaretto from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell everyone about it next time you're at the petting zoo? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.